everybody can take a seat, we're going to get started. Before we start, I need to know, is there anybody here who does not speak English other than the people presenting information today and the volunteers who are helping with the event? Is there anybody here who does not speak English?
I speak Spanish.
That's nice, but the question is anybody here not speak English? Everybody in the conference? Okay, no, we do have somebody who does not speak. No habla inglés? Okay, está bien. We're prepared to do the conference in English and Spanish, so that's why we wanted to know, so that everybody attending can understand what's being said. So, if you want to. Okay, so we're going to start. Before we start, I just want to mention one thing, or two things. The bathrooms are through this door. If you need to use the restroom, please go towards the back of the room and use the bathroom. The other thing is, if you can please turn off your cell phones.
Sí, nos gustaría antes que nada dar los buenos días. El baño queda detrás de esas dos puertas. Y la segunda regla, si queremos así llamarles, que por favor apaguen sus celulares.
I would like to welcome you to the Friends of Mexico FOM conference on foreign residents driving foreign-plated cars in Mexico.
Quisiéramos darle la bienvenida a los amigos de México a esta conferencia en torno a los residentes extranjeros que conducen automóviles con placas extranjeras aquí en México.
We have many people in attendance today who are not members of Friends of Mexico.
Tenemos muchas personas que están asistiendo en el día de hoy, quienes no son miembros de los Amigos de México.
I would like to take 1 minute to explain FOM.
Me gustaría tomar un minuto para así poder explicar los Amigos de México o Friends of Mexico.
We are the largest group in Mazatlán with just under 600 members.
Somos el grupo más grande que hay en Mazatlán, justo con un poquito menos de 600 miembros.
People started meeting in 1998, but Friends of Mexico was officially formed in 1999.
Amigos de México fue oficialmente formado en el año de 1999.
We have two goals. First, to support students in poorer areas of Mazatlán, which we do through scholarships, school supplies, and teaching English at 6 schools for grades 1 through 3.
Tenemos dos metas principales. Primero es apoyar a los estudiantes que viven en áreas marginadas económicamente en Mazatlán y lo hacemos a través de becas y de equipo escolar, así como enseñamos clases de inglés en 6 escuelas desde los grados del 1 al 3.
This year we gave out 247,500 pesos in scholarships to 99 junior high and high school students.
Este año nosotros donamos 247,500 pesos en ayuda a becas a 99 estudiantes de la escuela secundaria y de la preparatoria.
We also spent 200,000 pesos providing school supplies to 1,900 elementary school children.
Nosotros en adición gastamos 200,000 pesos proveyéndole equipo escolar a 1,900 niños de la escuela elemental.
If you're interested in sponsoring a student, the cost is 2,500 pesos or $250 for 1 year.
Si está interesado en auspiciar o apoyar a un estudiante, el costo es 2,500 pesos o $250 por año.
We also accept donations of any amount towards the scholarship program and school supplies.
También aceptamos donativos de cualquier cantidad que vaya a contribuir al programa de becas y de equipo escolar.
Secondly, we strive to support our membership.
En segundo lugar, nosotros buscamos apoyar nuestra membresía.
In order to support our members, we have monthly meetings here at the Playa Mazatlán and events.
Y para poder apoyar a nuestros miembros, nosotros llevamos a cabo reuniones mensuales y eventos.
On April 17th, we will be doing a tropical night from 6 to 8 at the Inn of Mazatlán. The price is 180 pesos and includes dinner, a show, and surprises.
El 17 de abril nosotros vamos a estar celebrando una noche tropical de 6 a 8 de la noche en el Hotel Inn at Mazatlán. El precio es de 180 pesos e incluye cena, un espectáculo, show y sorpresas.
We also organize trips for our membership. We will be going to Guadalajara and Mexico City again at the end of the year, beginning of next year.
También organizamos viajes de grupo para nuestra membresía y vamos a ir a Guadalajara y a la Ciudad de México una vez más al final de este año o principios del próximo año.
Our membership costs 200 pesos and gives you a membership card that works as a discount card at over 100 businesses here in town.
Nuestra membresía tiene un valor de 200 pesos y te da derecho a tener una tarjeta de miembro que te funciona, te puede ayudar como una tarjeta de descuento en más de 100 negocios aquí en esta ciudad.
If you're interested in joining for 200 pesos, buying a ticket to Tropical Night, signing up for a trip, or providing a scholarship for a deserving student, you can do so here today, or you can go to our webpage, www.friendsofmexicoac.org, for more information.
Si está interesado en unirte a Amigos de México por 200 pesos, comprar un boleto a la noche tropical, apuntarte para ir al viaje que mencionamos o proveer beca para los estudiantes que así lo merezcan, hágalo por favor en el día de hoy, o pueden entrar a nuestra página www.friendsofmexicoac.org para más información.
The issues around driving a foreign-plated car have created more anger, frustration, and confusion than the foreign community had to deal with in November when we first learned of changes in the immigration law.
Los asuntos en torno a conducir un automóvil con placas extranjeras ha creado mucha frustración y mucha confusión, mucho más que lo que la comunidad extranjera ha tenido que manejar desde noviembre, cuando nosotros supimos por primera vez de los cambios o enmiendas a esta ley de inmigración.
I would like all of you just to take a deep breath.
Or two. Me gustaría sugerirles que por favor respiren hondo.
You will hear information today from the source agencies, not gossip from the internet.
Ustedes van a escuchar hoy información, o van a tener esa oportunidad de escuchar información directamente de las agencias.
The laws in question are federal laws. We will not change things here.
Las leyes en cuestión son leyes federales, así que no vamos a cambiar nada en el día de hoy en este foro.
The purpose of today's gathering is to provide accurate information.
El propósito de la reunión del día de hoy es para proveer información veraz.
There will be things said that you may not be happy with. However, if you choose to live in Mexico legally and in compliance with the law, you have choices.
Hay cosas que se van a decir con la cual usted no va a estar contento. Sin embargo, si usted escoge vivir en México de forma legal y cumpliendo con las leyes, usted tiene alternativas.
Today you will hear what choices you have and what the consequences of those choices are.
En el día de hoy usted va a escuchar cuáles son esas alternativas y cuáles son las consecuencias de usted seleccionar esas alternativas.
I would ask that you are all respectful of our speakers.
Les estoy sugiriendo y estoy pidiendo que por favor sean muy respetuosos con las personas que se van a dirigir ustedes.
As you can see, we're going to be doing the talk in English and Spanish, and so it's important that we keep the noise to an absolute minimum.
Como van a escuchar, vamos a tener una traducción simultánea, así que es muy importante que mantengamos el ruido a un mínimo posible.
In addition, we will be videotaping this conference, and you will be able to access it at www.friendsofmexicoac.org, where you will get instructions on how to be able to view the videotape.
En adición, nosotros vamos a estar grabando mediante videos esta conferencia y usted podrá acceder a ellos en la página o portal www.friendsofmexicoac.org.
We have many speakers who will provide information. Many of the questions that were sent to Friends of Mexico will be answered during these presentations.
Vamos a tener varias personas que se van a dirigir a ustedes para proveer información. Muchas de las preguntas que ustedes enviaron a Friends of Mexico o Amigos de México serán contestadas durante estas presentaciones.
Your question may have detailed circumstances specific to you, but when you hear the law, you will understand that your specifics do not matter regarding the application of the law.
Sus preguntas pudiesen incluir unas circunstancias muy detalladas, específicamente dirigidas a su caso particular. Pero cuando ustedes escuchen la ley, ustedes van a entender por qué esos asuntos específicos no importan o no tienen la importancia en relación a la aplicación de la ley.
After the presentations, whatever issues that were presented in advance will be addressed if they were not already answered by one of the speakers.
Luego de las presentaciones, en relación a los issues o asuntos que fueron presentados con antelación, van a ser tomados en consideración si no ya fueron contestados, si no es que ya fueron contestados por una de las personas que se dirige a ustedes.
There will be no questions from the floor.
No van a haber preguntas desde este foro.
At the end of the meeting, the speakers have graciously offered to go to the back of the room and answer your specific questions until 12 p.m., and that is when we must leave.
Al final de esta reunión, las personas que se van a dirigir a ustedes van a ir a la parte posterior de este foro y van a contestar sus preguntas específicas hasta las 12 del mediodía, porque a esa hora debemos marcharnos.
Please sit back and listen.
Les agradecemos que por favor se relajen, se sienten cómodamente y escuchen.
I would like to now introduce the people we have who are going to be presenting information, not in any specific order.
Quisiera presentarles a las personas que se van a dirigir a ustedes, aunque no necesariamente en ese orden particular.
We have Marissa Jiménez Guerra, Directora de Relaciones Públicas y Enlace Comunidad Extranjera.
La licenciada Marisa Jiménez, que trabaja para la Secretaría de Turismo, con Relaciones Públicas y Enlace con la Comunidad.
We are awaiting the presence or the arrival of Dr. Francisco Cordova Zelaya, who is the Secretary of Tourism for the state of Sinaloa.
Estamos esperando a que llegue de un momento a otro el señor secretario de Turismo del Estado de Sinaloa, licenciado Francisco Córdoba Zelaya.
We have some people from a group called Sinaloa International Advisory Committee. This is a group through the Office of Tourism. We have Arlene Johnson, who's the second chair of Community Service.
Tenemos la señora Arlene Johnson, que es Chair of Community Service.
Jody Quinnell, who's in charge of ethics.
Judy Quinnell, quien está encargado de ética.
Dr. John Brown, who's in charge of health and lifestyle.
John Brown, quien está a cargo de los asuntos que tienen que ver de salud y estilos de vida.
I'm on the committee and I'm in charge of business and investment.
I'm in charge of negocios e inversiones.
We have Marcelo Santana, who's here as our interpreter. We have Luis Ramirez from the American Consulate.
Tenemos a Luis Ramírez, cónsul de Estados Unidos aquí en Mazatlán.
We have Wendy Hardwin, who's the consular agent of Canada.
Wendy Hardwin, cónsul de Canadá aquí en Mazatlán.
We have Licenciada Adriana Sanchez, Subdirector of Regularization of Immigration for Immigration.
Licenciada Adriana Sánchez, Directora de Regularización Migratoria del INS.
Tenemos Licenciado Jesús Heraldez Pérez.
Tenemos al licenciado Jesús Heraldez Pérez, delegado de migración aquí en la ciudad.
He's the immigration boss here in Mazatlan. We have Comandante Roberto Gutierrez Lara.
Tenemos al comandante Roberto Gutiérrez Lara.
We have Onan Aron Aguilar Iniguez.
Tenemos al señor Aarón Aguilar Íñiguez, es comandante de la Policía del Tránsito.
He's the head of Tránsito.
Head of Transit.
We also have Martín López Padilla.
Tenemos también al Martín López Padilla, policía.
We have Juan Chung.
Tenemos a Juan Francisco Chong Robles, broker in insurance.
We have Licenciado Rigoberto Marua Beltrán Contreras.
El licenciado Rigoberto Murúa Beltrán Contreras, que es el jefe de departamento.
Licencia Celiflora Sánchez Cortés.
Licenciada Celiflora Sánchez Cortés, que es enlace.
Licenciado Pedro León Cano.
El licenciado Pedro León Cano es de Customs or Aduana, but I don't see him here.
Okay, he'll be back.
Él va a regresar pronto.
Okay, and then we have members of the Board of Friends of Mexico. We have Father Jim Story, who's in charge of the webpage.
Miembros de la Junta Directiva de Amigos de México, el padre Jim.
We have Ed Posies, who's the vice president in the back. We have Lucia Yeres, who's in charge of scholarships.
Lucía, que está cargando de las becas a estudiantes.
I'm Dr. Steve Backman, president of Friends of Mexico.
Y él es el presidente de Amigos de México.
Okay, and we're going to start now with the presentations. We're going to start with Marissa, who has some words from the Secretary of Tourism.
Y vamos a comenzar con la licenciada Marisa Jiménez, que tiene algunas palabras del secretario de Turismo.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Marisa Jimenez. On behalf of the Secretary of Tourism, thank you for coming. We'll be available to assist you all the office and facilitate your interest on this use.
Muy buenos días, mi nombre es Marisa Jiménez y a nombre del secretario de Turismo, muchísimas gracias por haber asistido a esta reunión. Vamos a estar disponibles para poderles ayudar a todos ustedes en la oficina de turismo y facilitar a ustedes todas las preguntas que tengan en cuanto al interés sobre este asunto en la oficina de turismo.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Okay, the first speaker with the presentation will be Licenciada Adriana Sanchez y Licenciado Jesus Heraldez Perez from Migración, from Immigration.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Adriana, no Aduana, Adriana from Migración.
Not my name. Her name is Adriana Sanchez, and she's the deputy in immigration. I'm sorry.
En nuestro país ha surgido un gran cambio favorable en la legislación migratoria.
And a big change has taken place in the law regarding immigration just recently.
Algunas de las razones por las que nuestro país decidió cambiar la ley
Some of the reasons why our country decided to amend or change the law
es para facilitar la movilidad internacional de personas.
is to allow foreigners to come to and from Mexico in an easier fashion.
Otra de las razones es brindarles hospitalidad y solidaridad internacional con las personas que ocupan un nuevo lugar de residencia temporal o permanente debido a que su vida corre peligro en el país de origen.
The second reason should be to offer hospitality and international solidarity with those persons that move into Mexico as a new place for them to live, either in a temporary basis or permanently, because their lives are in danger in their country of origin.
Otra de las razones es proporcionarles la oportunidad de unirse con sus familias a aquellas personas que cuenten con un vínculo con personas que ya son residentes temporales o permanentes en México, interponiendo el interés superior de la niña, niño, adolescente como criterio prioritario en la internación y estancia de extranjeros para que puedan residir de manera legal en México.
It is to foster the interest of the family for those girls, boys, and teenagers as a priority to help them join or to strengthen the needs of the family, specifically of those that are foreigners that are come here to Mexico, either to live in permanent or temporary basis.
Otra de las razones es fortalecer la contribución de la autoridad migratoria a la seguridad pública y fronteriza, a la seguridad regional y al combate contra el crimen organizado, especialmente en el combate al tráfico o secuestro de migrantes y a la trata de personas en todas sus modalidades.
Is to strengthen the contribution that we have to the migratory authorities, to public security and the guards that we have in the border, to support the regional security and also to help fight the organized crime, especially in those matters that deals with the drugs, traffic of drugs, and also the kidnapping of the migrants, and also for those that are, it's a person slavery in all its different ways.
Aquí les describí algunos de los casos que se han presentado en las diferentes condiciones de estancia. Les doy la posibilidad o una de las soluciones que puede tener y qué pasa en el caso de que no hiciera lo que dice la ley.
What you're seeing here is a table, and that table is divided in columns. As you see on the top, you have the title. The first one from left to right, it says basically, if you are, and basically it says if you are a permanent resident, and so on, downward. Second column, it says, what if, and this is going to explain the different scenario. The third column, ¿qué debo hacer?, is what should I do based on the specific scenario. And the fourth column, it says consecuencias si no lo hace. What are the consequences if it is do not comply?
En el primer escenario tenemos el caso de un residente permanente o inmigrado
The first column shows the case of a permanent resident or a person that migrates to Mexico.
¿Qué pasa si el inmigrado o residente permanente ya no quiere más la tarjeta que le corresponde, que sería la de permanente o inmigrado?
What if a permanent resident do not wishes to have or hold any longer the residente permanente or permanent resident card?
Lo que debe hacer esta persona es acudir a la oficina del instituto para desistirse del trámite migratorio.
What should the person do is to go and visit the migration office in order to desist of the migratory dealings that he's doing with migration.
Si no acude ante la oficina de migración para desistirse del trámite, entonces su condición permanecerá como la tiene, que es el caso de la condición de permanente o inmigrado.
If you, of course, do not go to the migration office, then your status will remain as is. In other words, you will remain as permanent resident.
Si una persona residente permanente desea adquirir una casa o un departamento en México,
What if a permanent resident or inmigrado wants to purchase or acquire a house or a department in Mexico?
deberá realizar los trámites correspondientes a través de un fideicomiso.
It should do all this work in order to purchase the house or the department via a trust.
Si no lo hace a través de un fideicomiso, no podrá adquirir una casa o un departamento en México.
Of course, if you don't get the trust, and if it's not done through a trust, then you will not be able to purchase
a house or a condo or an apartment in Mexico.
Si un inmigrado desea adquirir una casa o un departamento sin necesidad de un fideicomiso, deberá adquirir la nacionalidad mexicana.
In the case of a permanent resident inmigrado, what happens if you would like to purchase a house or a condo without a trust? What should you do? You should acquire or get or be granted the Mexican nationality.
No existe una consecuencia legal si no se naturaliza mexicano, sin embargo, no podrá adquirir la casa de esta manera.
There's no legal consequences other than you will be unable, of course, to acquire or purchase a house or a condo.
¿Qué pasa en el caso de que un residente permanente o inmigrado desea vivir en México nuevamente como residente temporal?
What happens if a permanent resident would like to live in Mexico as a temporary resident?
Deberá desistirse del trámite migratorio en la oficina del instituto y posteriormente ir al consulado mexicano por una visa de residente temporal.
You stop your proceedings in the immigration office and you should go to the Mexican consulate in order to get a temporary resident visa.
En caso de que no se desista del trámite, la condición de residente permanente continuará vigente.
If that does not take place, then you will remain as is, as permanent resident. And of course, it has to be outside of Mexico if you're going to visit a Mexican consulate.
Aquel inmigrado o residente permanente que desea venir a México a visitar solo como turista,
Again, the case has to do with the permanent resident scenario and those that wish to live in Mexico as visitors without working.
deberá desistirse del trámite de inmigrado en la oficina del instituto e ingresar a México normalmente como visitante sin actividad lucrativa, que es el turista.
You desist in your dealings with the immigration office and you should come into Mexico as a visitor without any non-paying job.
En caso de que no acudan a la oficina a desistirse, la condición de permanente o inmigrado continuará.
If that doesn't take place, then you remain as permanent residents.
En el caso de los residentes temporales que desean pasar a la condición de residente permanente,
The following example is a different one. It's a different scenario. It has to do with temporary residents, not permanent residents. What happens if a temporary resident wishes to obtain the condition or status of permanent resident?
deberá cumplir los requisitos en la oficina del instituto.
He should go to the immigration office and follow the procedures accordingly.
La condición de... En el caso del residente temporal, podrá renovar su tarjeta de residente temporal hasta cumplir 4 años de estancia en el país.
In that particular case, the temporary resident can renew his or her temporary resident card, continue renewing it until 4 years, after being 4 years of living in Mexico.
El residente temporal que ya no desea continuar con la condición o con la tarjeta de residente temporal deberá acudir a la oficina del instituto para desistirse del trámite.
What happens if you're a temporary resident and you do not wish to continue being a temporary resident in Mexico? What should you do? You should go to the immigration office and desist or stop your migratory works or dealing.
Si no se desiste del trámite, podrá renovar la tarjeta de residente temporal hasta concluir los 4 años y posteriormente salir del país.
Si continúa. Yeah. If you continue with the process of doing, of not wanting anymore the temporary, of being a temporary resident, you can renew after you have lived here in Mexico 4 years, and of course after leaving the country.
En el caso de los residentes temporales que desean adquirir una casa o un departamento en México, deberán realizar los trámites correspondientes a través de un fideicomiso.
And just like the other permanent resident, in case you would like to acquire or purchase a department or a house in Mexico, you should go and do it via a trust.
Si no lo hacen a través de un fideicomiso, no podrá adquirir una casa o un departamento en México.
And if you don't do it by means of the trust, then you will be unable to acquire or purchase a house or a department in Mexico.
En caso de los residentes temporales que desean adquirir una casa o departamento sin necesidad de fideicomiso, deberá adquirir primero la nacionalidad mexicana.
If you're a temporary resident and you would like to purchase or acquire a home without a trust, you must first acquire or get the Mexican, or be granted the Mexican nationality.
Si no se naturalizan mexicanos, no existe consecuencia, pero no podrá adquirirlo la casa o el departamento sin fideicomiso.
There is no legal consequences to this, other than you will not be able to acquire or purchase that house in this particular case.
¿Qué pasa si un residente temporal ya ha concluido con los 4 años de legal estancia en México?
What happens with the temporary resident once the 4 years are over of being legally in Mexico? You file for your permanent residency.
Si no aplica para la residencia permanente, una opción es salir del país e ingresar como visitante sin actividad remunerada, que es el turista.
If you do not do that, then the alternative is to leave the country and then come back as a visitor, but knowing that you will not be getting a paying job.
¿Qué pasa si un residente temporal concluye con los 4 años, pero desea continuar viviendo en México como residente temporal?
What happens if you're a temporary resident and the 4 years are over, that you have lived here 4 years as a temporary resident, but you would wish or desire to continue living as or staying here as a temporary resident?
Deberá salir de México y presentarse al consulado mexicano a adquirir una visa de residente temporal para poder vivir en México por otros 4 años.
You must renew your temporary resident card or visa, and in order to do that, you have to leave the country, go to a Mexican consulate in your country, and ask for another temporary resident visa for another 4 years.
Si no desea adquirir una visa de residente temporal, entonces deberá salir del país y podrá ingresar como turista sin ningún problema o como visitante sin actividad remunerada, como actualmente se le llama.
Yes, if you do not wish to do that, then you should leave the country, come back again as a visitor without a paying job, as a tourist, in other words.
Me gustaría aquí aclarar que las personas que ya han concluido con 4 años como residente temporal tienen 2 opciones.
There's 2 options for those temporary residents who have been here 4 or more years.
La primera opción es que si ya concluí con los 4 años,
First option, I already have 4 years.
y no deseo convertirme en permanente,
and I do not wish to be a permanent resident.
Debo salir de México
I should leave Mexico,
e ir al consulado mexicano
I
a
go to the
obtener una visa
Mexican consulate in order to get a visa
para residente temporal nuevamente,
as a temporary resident once again,
y eso les permitirá vivir en México como residente temporal por otros 4 años.
and that will allow you to live in Mexico as a temporary resident for the following 4 years.
Si algún extranjero desea vivir en México como residente temporal para
If a
siempre,
foreigner wants to live in Mexico as a temporary resident forever until you die,
ellos deberán adquirir la visa de residente temporal cada 4 años en el consulado.
every 4 years in your consulate, Mexican consulate, you have to renew this particular visa every 4 years.
Los visitantes sin permisos para realizar actividades remuneradas, que es el turista,
Okay, in this particular scenario has to do with visitors that were not granted the permission to have paying jobs.
cada vez que ingrese a México se me documentará por 180 días. No va a renovar. Cada entrada al país como turista será por 180 días. Cada entrada que ellos den.
Every time you come in, you enter Mexico, it should not be for more than 180 days. It's 180 days or less.
Si ustedes adquieren una forma migratoria de turista por 180 días y
Once you
regresan,
get that 180 days permission, a visa to stay for 180 days,
y solo gastan, por ejemplo, 30 días y regresan a su país,
if you stay here, for instance, only 30 days and you go back to your country,
cuando ingrese a México, podrá ingresar a México al día siguiente y los días que se les otorgarán serán otros 180 días.
you can come back to Mexico, but instead of having the remainder of the 180 days, you can stay an additional 180 days.
Es decir, cada entrada que haga un extranjero como turista se les otorgan 180 días y una
In
vez
other
que
words, every entry, every time you come back, you start from zero again to count up all the way up to, but not more than 180 days.
entrar como turista no tiene ninguna consecuencia con migración.
And come here as a tourist has absolutely absolutely no problem from the legal standpoint of view.
Actualmente los turistas pueden adquirir casas o departamentos en México.
Those visitors that are tourists, of course, that you cannot hold a paying job and you would like to purchase a house or a department in Mexico,
Podrán hacerlo por medio de un fideicomiso.
you can do it. You can purchase a house nowadays with these new amendments, and you could do that via a trust.
Esta modalidad es nueva y beneficia a aquellas personas que solo permanecen en México por menos de 180 días y con la ley anterior eran obligadas a obtener una FM3.
Before, as you recall, you need to obtain or be granted an FM3. Nowadays, you can purchase a home or a condo, and you don't need an FM3.
Los turistas que deseen venir a México como residente temporal por 4 años deberán acudir al consulado a obtener su visa de residente temporal.
Those of you that would like to live in Mexico as a temporary resident for 4 years, you have to obtain or be granted a visa, or a temporary resident visa in the Mexican consulate in your country or any other foreign country other than Mexico.
Si no acuden al consulado a obtener la visa de residente temporal, las oficinas que estamos aquí en México y particularmente en Mazatlán, no les podremos dar la condición de residente temporal.
In that particular scenario, The immigration office here cannot grant you that unless you go to a Mexican consulate, which means you have to travel outside Mexico.
Aquellas personas que han visitado Mazatlán o México como turistas y desean venir a México, ya no como turistas, sino como residentes permanentes, pueden adquirir la residencia permanente en el consulado mexicano en el extranjero.
Those visitors that have not been granted permission to have paying jobs, and you come here as a tourist, and you wish to come to Mexico as a permanent resident, you also have to go to the Mexican consulate in a foreign country other than Mexico in order to get a permanent resident visa. She's basically stressing the fact that there are certain things that cannot be dealt with here in immigration office. You have to, according to the federal law, you have to go outside of Mexico. Could be the States, Canada, whichever place, to a Mexican consulate.
Costos. ¿Cuánto cuesta renovar las tarjetas de residente temporal?
Here we're talking about fees, and it has to do how much does it cost in order to renew the temporary resident card.
Por un año 3.130, por 2 años 4.690, por 3 años 5.940 y por 4 años 7.040.
It goes from top to bottom. First one is 1 year, and then the amount is in pesos, 3,130. 2 years, 4,690 pesos. 3 years, 5,940 pesos, and 4 years is 7,040 pesos.
¿Cuánto cuesta adquirir la condición de residente permanente? Son 1,000 pesos por la recepción de los documentos y 3.815 por el otorgamiento de la condición de residente permanente.
How much it costs the permanent resident status? And the answer is 1,000 pesos when the government here receives the documents, all the documentation. That's 1,000 pesos. And then, in order to grant you the permanent resident status, is 3,815 pesos.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.
So just a couple of points that Licenciada Adriano mentioned. For tourist visas, it's for 180 days, but as we heard at the immigration forum, you can leave the country for 1 day, come back in, and the 180 days starts all over again. That was one of the rumors that's been going around. Right now, she laid the groundwork for Aduana because one of the things she talked about was you can do a residente temporal for 4 years and keep renewing it for 4 years as long as you go to a Mexican consulate in the United States or Canada or your country. Think about that as you start hearing what Aduana has to say, because those are some options available to us, okay? So, muchas gracias. Okay. The next people will be from Aduana. Okay, it'll just be from Aduana. We're going to take questions at the end. There's no questions, sorry. ¿Están listos? We're going to have Luis Ramirez from the American Consulate come and speak.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Friends of Mexico. And I would like to clarify basically one point. We're all guests in this country. And the reason why we exist as a service for American citizens is basically to preserve the well-being and welfare of Americans living here in Mexico. but we're hosting the country and we must obey the law. I get probably an average of 17 to 20 calls a day, plus visitors every day regarding these issues of aduana, foreign plated cards, dividends, purchase of property, etc. We cannot intervene with the local authorities. We can only be sure that you are not discriminated on the basis of being an American citizen or a US citizen. An issue that has been brought recently, and I would like to take 1 minute to discuss, and I would like that this is very short, actually very clear in the mind of people, is the issue of legal permanent residence in the United States. There are people that hold foreign passports and live legally in the United States under the concept of legal permanent residence, green card holders, or whatever the term is. We contacted the USCIS, United States Customs and Immigration Service, and we reviewed the law. And the law is in this book. Look at how big it is. And the law says, and I'd like to make this very clear, you cannot be a legal permanent resident in 2 countries. So if you hold a passport of a foreign country and you live legally in the United States, you cannot be a legal permanent resident in the United States. You cannot. You cannot be a legal permanent resident in the United States and be a legal permanent resident in Mexico if you hold a legal permanent resident card. In other words, these are people that may have a passport from Zimbabwe or Zambia, and they live in the United States, and they are legal permanent residents in the United States, and now they are going to become legal permanent residents in Mexico. There are consequences that potentially can have implication with Social Security Administration and so forth. I just received instructions this morning to conduct all these questions to the Social Security Benefit Office in Guadalajara, and to be very sure that potentially there may be a conflict between the legal permanent resident status in the United States and the legal permanent resident of Mexico. By NAFTA, and it was approved, information is going to be shared. In other words, if the Homeland Security Department, the USCIS, requests information regarding any specific file of a person as part of living legally, permanently living in Mexico, the information is going to be shared. And the reason is basically for the drug laundering money and for the reasons that are specified under the NAFTA Treaty Act. Most of us here are basically the bona fide citizens that have decided to live here and enjoy the competitiveness, the weather, etc., and the friendly people of Mexico. But there are going to be specific cases of people that hold United States, foreign passports, and they live legally in the United States. They're green card holders in the United States. Please be very careful when you decide what to do as part of changing your migratory status in Mexico. The law says, and is very explicit, that your legal permanent resident status in the United States can be revoked. The other issue that I was asked to comment was, what about crossing a foreign plated car into the United States? There is no federal law regarding that. When you are in the border, they are not going to ask you for anything, but it depends upon the state. Texas, for example, will require insurance to cross into the state of Texas, and we have a specific number of days that you can have that car legally into Texas territory. New Mexico has other rules, Arizona, California, and so forth. Thank you.
Next is Wendy Hardwin, the consular agent from Canada.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending. On permanent resident status, if you are a Canadian with a permanent resident status in Mexico, it does not affect your permanent resident status in Canada. All right, so we're different from the United States. So I just want to make that clear. And the other question that I was asked to talk about this morning was, if you have a foreign plated car and you'd like it to take it to Canada, every province is a bit different. I spoke with ICBC, and residents or citizens have up to 30 days to get the vehicle registered, plated, and insured. The time period in other provinces can vary, but it's usually within the 30 to 90-day period. Tourists with a foreign plated car may drive the foreign plated car with the appropriate registration, plates, and insurance in Canada up to 180 days. So that should be clear, okay? Thank you.
I think we just got rid of about 6 rumors on the internet. What I'd like to do now is introduce Lance Bien, who is our host here at Playa Mazatlán. We want to thank him for letting us use the room at no charge. Virginia George is a longtime member of Friends of Mexico. Are you here, Virginia? There you are in the back. So we want to thank you for your support. And again, to remind people, we have our meetings here on the second Tuesday morning of each month. The next speaker is Aduana. Sí.
Bueno, muy buenos días a todos.
Good morning to all of you.
Mi nombre es Flora Sánchez Cortés, Migración and Aduana de Mazatlán. Al señor Hugo, yo creo que ya todo el mundo
It's
lo
Licenciada
conoce.
Sánchez from U.S. Customs.
El señor Rigoberto Murúa, jefe de departamento de la aduana de Mazatlán.
And he's the chief of customs here in Mazatlán.
Bueno, primero que nada más una aclaración a todos ustedes. Las leyes aduaneras no hubo cambio alguno, sigue siendo lo mismo.
Nothing changed in customs regarding the law, just like it happened in immigration.
Ok, bueno, primero que nada, bueno, tenemos ahí un archivo donde vienen 4 columnas. ¿En qué calidad están ustedes? ¿Qué sucedería en caso de? ¿Qué debo hacer y las consecuencias?
This format, which is in the form of table, is basically like the one, similar presentation that immigration did. The first column on your left-hand side says, si usted es, if you are, in this particular case, is permanent resident. The second column is the what ifs and different various scenarios. And then the third column is what you should do in this or that particular scenario. And then the consequences if that is not complied with.
Bueno, primero que nada, los que ya vayan a obtener su residente permanente, es muy importante. Bueno, los residentes permanentes, queda claro que una vez adquirida esa calidad tienen que retornar el vehículo, sacarlo del país. No pueden tenerlo aquí ya como calidad permanente.
Once you acquire the permanent resident status, you're inmigrado, and you have
Cualquier vehículo extranjero, mientras tenga la calidad permanente, tiene que ser retornarlo fuera del país.
Once you are a permanent resident or inmigrado, as you know, the car has to be returned to the U.S. or Canada, depending. I'm sorry, is the vehicles with foreign plates Vehicles with foreign plates. Okay, that's the ones that she's referring at. If you have Mexican plates, that does not apply.
Ok, ahora la consecuencia, en dado caso que se dejaran el vehículo aquí, estaría ilegal en el país.
If you do not return it or the car is sent back to the States or to Canada, then it is considered unlawful under the law.
Ok, el segundo concepto sería la calidad temporal. Ahí sí pueden tener un auto aquí en México.
If you're a temporary resident, which is only for 4 years unless it is renewed, you can have a car with foreign plates in Mexico.
Ok, en cuanto a migraciones de temporal, tienen que ir a las oficinas de la aduana y avisarnos. Nosotros les damos un formato donde ya demuestran ustedes que avisaron a la aduana para que no tengan ningún problema.
Una vez inmigración,
Presentarse en la aduana con la calidad temporal.
As soon as you get the temporary residence from immigration, you should go to the customs office in order to notify customs, and in turn, aduana or customs will give you a letter that will allow you to drive that car with foreign plates.
Quisiera recomendarles que si desean tener su vehículo aquí, aquellos que tienen su residencia temporal, como dijo la migración, pueden ir al consulado mexicano en el extranjero, como en Estados Unidos, y renovar su residencia temporal. Y pueden tener su vehículo otros 4 años en México.
una vez se cumplan los 4 años, sale fuera del país.
Sí,
Tiene residencia temporal.
sí.
This is also regarding the temporary residents here in Mexico. Once the 4 years are over, and in order to continue having this privilege, you have to renew, of course, your temporary residence in a Mexican consulate outside the country. And of course, you have to notify aduana.
Ahora los que tengan visa de turista pueden tener.
The next scenario has to do with tourist visas.
Ok, pueden tener el auto aquí únicamente por 6 meses al año.
You can only have your car and drive it here or keep it here for no more than 6 months every year.
Ok, en este caso tendrían solamente que tramitar su forma migratoria. Igual es la misma de turista, igual por 6 meses al año.
Tienen que ir a inmigración a renovarla.
Es la de turista, visa de turista que les da migración.
This is basically to follow the procedures regarding any tourist visa that is granted here in Mexico.
Es la que le da migración al momento de entrar
And
al
of course, you
país.
have to go to immigration.
Y al inmigrado no aplica.
Listos.
La visa de turista que tenemos que tener claro por 6 meses es la que adquieren en la frontera. No tienen que ir aquí conmigo a Mazatlán Hotel o tener una FOM. Desde el momento de ingresar a México, ahí hay una oficina de migración y ahí deberán adquirir su FOM para que aduana les dé el permiso por 6 meses.
Regarding the FMM, which is a tourist visa, you don't have to go outside the country. This is immigration clearing this issue off. Basically, when you come into the country, in the border, that's where you can acquire it. So you don't have to make unnecessary trips or travels or drive. Gracias.
Bueno, aquí nos hicieron llegar vía correo. Tengo entendido que
reality, we had about 100 questions submitted. These are about the first 40 or 50, but a lot of them, yeah, 200 questions. So the thing is, Aduana answered a lot of the questions that are basically applicable to most people. Again, you may have certain situations specific to you, but in reality, it doesn't really affect the situation of your car. So if you look, as she goes through the questions, you'll see what really is the law and how it will apply to you.
Básicamente, para las personas que tienen un poco de dificultad en el idioma inglés, inmediatamente la pregunta aparece en inglés en la parte superior y en la parte inferior aparece traducido al español. Pero ella va a ir sobre esas preguntas.
Bueno, empezamos con la pregunta 1. ¿Por qué la palabra rentista fue eliminada de la visa de residente permanente? Bueno, nosotros consideramos que esa pregunta corresponde a migración.
¿Por qué la palabra rentista fue eliminada de la visa de residente permanente? Y eso, no sé si Migración tiene la respuesta.
La Ley General de Población que contemplaba la palabra rentista fue derogada.
The law that included the word rentista was taken off the books, or it was eliminated.
En la ley anterior, o sea, rentista aparecía en la Ley General de Población y esa fue eliminada. La que usamos ahora es la Ley de Migración y ahí luego viene la palabra rentista.
It was definitely taken off, that word, from the old law, and now what remains is basically the same law without the word rentista. Sí.
Ok, la número 2. Si nacionalizas un hombre extranjero, ¿por cuánto tiempo puedes manejarlo en los Estados Unidos o Canadá? De igual manera, esa pregunta tendría que hacerse al consulado en Estados Unidos o Canadá.
If you nationalize a foreign car, how long can you drive it in the United States or Canada, and perhaps the Madam Consul or Mr. Consul from the US? It was already answered. The next question is, what restrictions apply in the United States/Canada? And that was also answered by the consul and ¿Podemos ir a?
Sí, ahora la 4. Con la visa residente temporal, ¿tengo que hacer algo diferente a lo que hacía anteriormente con la aduana?
With the residente temporal, do I do anything different than before regarding aduana?
Es exactamente lo mismo que hacían antes, es avisar a la aduana en cuanto tengan el temporal, en cuanto migración se los dé, avisar a la aduana.
Just like before, you just notified aduana or customs.
¿Habrá algún tipo de excepción a la ley? Ejemplo, vehículos para discapacitados, autos clásicos.
Will there be any exemptions to the law? For example, vehicles for handicapped people, classic cars, and so forth.
Los autos para discapacitados tienen que hacer un trámite ante la administración local jurídica para que les condonen los impuestos. Esa autorización se debe de hacer antes de entrar el vehículo al país. Y al ingresarlo, despacharlo por medio de una aduanal, no van a pagar ningún impuesto, solamente van a pagar los servicios de aduanal. Los clásicos también se pueden importar, pero en la aduana de entrada al país ya sea en la frontera o por vía marítima. Los clásicos deben tener mínimo 30 años de antigüedad, sin ninguna restricción, sin ningún permiso, sin nada, nada más que el requisito de que tengan la
Los discapacitados van a estar exentos de impuestos, pero ¿dónde hacen esa?
In the case of handicap, the handicap vehicles for handicap, you have to go to the local IRS, which is Hacienda, in order to get a permit and make it a tax exempt. Those particular cars. In the case of the classic cars, basically the only requirement is that they will be 3 years or older.
30.
I'm sorry, or older.
30.
30 años.
30. 30.
Ok, la pregunta número 6. ¿Puede cualquier auto que no caiga bajo el libre tratado de comercio ser importado bajo residente temporal? ¿Cómo saber dónde procede tu auto?
Can any non-NAFTA car be imported on a residente temporal? How do you know where your car is from?
Bueno, en el número de serie del vehículo únicamente están considerados los números que empiecen con 1, 4 y 5 de Estados Unidos. El número 2 de Canadá y 3 de México.
It has to do with the serial number that starts with 1, 4, and 5. That means is from the United States. Those that start with number 2 is from Canada, and if it starts with 3, is from Mexico.
Esta pregunta es para la importación definitiva de los vehículos, nada más los producidos en Estados Unidos, pero para tenerlos aquí con la residencia temporal puede ser cualquier vehículo tercero, no hay distinción.
Puede tenerlo irrespectivo de si tiene nacional o extranjero.
Siempre y cuando sea importación temporal, independientemente del número que sea.
Regarding the temporary residence, there's absolutely no problem, regardless of which type of a car. It's regardless of where it was manufactured. So you can drive foreign plated automobiles if you are a temporary resident, in other words.
La 7. ¿Puede cualquier auto que no caiga bajo el Tratado de Libre Comercio ser nacionalizado?
Can any non-NAFTA car be nationalized?
Se pueden importar los carros que no entran en el Tratado de Libre Comercio. Sí se pueden importar, pero cumpliendo con las regulaciones arancelarias, o sea, un permiso de la Secretaría de Comercio, digo de Economía, y pagarían el 50% de la receta masiva y otros impuestos por ahí. La facilidad está en que se trata
regarding that particular question, you have to contact the economy, the Secretary of Economy, or of course the Office of Economy, and Departments of Economy, and in those particular cases, basically there will be a 50% tax or import tax. And of course, they will give you the details, but remember, you have to go in those particular cases to the Department of Economy, Departamento de Economía, in order to get also a permit.
¿Dónde puedo acudir para nacionalizar un auto?
Where can I go in order to nationalize a car?
Ok, en este caso tendría que contratar los servicios de una agente aduanal y sería en las aduanas de entrada al país. No.
No en la oficina, sino una agencia.
Contratar los servicios de una agencia aduanal, un broker, como lo conocen ustedes, y en las aduanas de entradas al país. Ahí tendrían que hacer el trámite.
You, number one, have to contact a broker, it's a custom broker, when you, as soon as you're coming into the country, and they're there, they will be able to do and handle all your questions and what is needed in order to nationalize an automobile. So it's a custom broker at the border.
Ok. ¿Existen restricciones en cuanto al tiempo que uno puede estar fuera de México con una visa de residente permanente?
Are there any restrictions on the time one can be out of Mexico with a residente permanente visa? The answer, immigration says no. No restriction.
Okay.
Yes.
¿De qué años deben ser los vehículos para que puedan ser nacionalizados ahora? ¿Cuáles son los planes para el futuro?
Two questions. What years of vehicles can be nationalized now? What is the schedule for the future?
Ok, ahorita únicamente los modelos 2004 y 2005 y a partir del 1 de noviembre del 2013 ya entraría el modelo 2006.
It's 2004 and 2005 models. And as of the 1st of November, of every 1st of November, you can import adding one more year. In other words, on November the 1st of 2013, this year, it can be 2006.
Sí, ya a partir del 1 de noviembre del 2013, entonces ya sería 2005 y 2006.
And then 2004 is taken off, and what applies is 2005 and 2006, and subsequently as the years come on November the 1st. The last number of the order is deleted and one is added.
Ok, explique el proceso de residente temporal contra permanente contra turista.
Sí, vamos a hacer un pequeño paréntesis para así permitir que una persona que el Dr. Bachman va a presentarnos se dirija y luego continuamos. We're just going to break for just a second and Dr. Bachman will explain why.
Before we continue, we have another speaker here, and he's probably, apart from the governor, probably the next busiest person in Sinaloa. I would like to introduce Dr. Francisco Cordova Zelaya, who is the Secretary of Tourism for the state of Sinaloa.
I hate to interrupt, but I'd just like to thank every one of you that came here this morning, and also thank the federal authorities that are with us. I'd also like to say hi Wendy and Luis for making thank them too for making this event possible. I want to tell you that for the state government, for Governor Malova and myself, you are a group that we most want to take care of. You are the group that we most want to feel comfortable and feel welcome. And events like this, I think, will help us go a long ways. Communication is important, but sometimes the laws, sometimes the language barrier make it very, very difficult to get some of the basic questions answered sometimes. And this type of forum, I think, will help us clear a lot of your questions, a lot of your doubts, a lot of your fears. I want to let you know that what can be cleared up here, what can be solved here, we've got a group of federal legislatures that are ready to change whatever needs to be changed, so that the process that we're going through, that the requirements that we may have, can be streamlined and can be more equitable for all of us involved. I want to thank you one more time for taking time to come and listen, and just ask you one favor, that you share this information with your neighbors, with your friends. And if you still have lingering questions after this meeting, please let us know, and we'll be more than happy to get you an answer, get you whatever problem needs to be resolved, fixed. I'll let you get back to your meeting, and let you know we're a few blocks down the road. That is your office. Secretary of Tourism's office is your office. And please come in at any time, and if you got nothing to do, we'll get you a cup of coffee and we'll see what we can do for you. Maybe we'll put you to work. Thank you very much.
We're just going to proceed with the questions and answers in English now.
Question number 11. Explain the process of residente temporal versus permanente versus tourist, and I believe migration covered that very well.
Sería hasta la 14 que ya migración.
Perfecto. We'll go to number 14 because the others were duly answered by immigration. What are the regulations for a tourist visa? Is it 100? No, I'm sorry, 14. Why can't I pay import duty and or nationalize my car at Aduana Mazatlán? It sounds like fun.
Okay.
Sí, no, la contestación.
Ok. Sí se podría, obviamente, siempre y cuando previo permiso igual de la Secretaría de Economía.
And this of course covers what they both mentioned before about the 50% tax that has to do with the Department of Economía or Economy. This was part of the answer, but the official answer is, there is the Department of Economy, Departamento de Economía, which is in Culiacán. You know where it is. It's closer than going someplace else. And that will take two things. They will grant a permission or a permit. They will issue a permit. And number two, you have to remember there is a 50% tax. That is why basically we are working, driving there or paying the foreign nationalized card for an extended period of time in Canada or the United States. And we cannot have a foreign plated card here if we are a residente permanente. What are we to do if we drive back and forth? Okay. Para poder ir más rápido, voy a leer la pregunta, a traducir la contestación. Y si hay alguna pregunta o alguna duda.
Simón, fíjate que aquí tiene una junta, güey.
Y así avanzamos.
Simón, yo ahorita te hablo.
You have to have an entry or coming to the nation as a tourist with the FOM form for a period of 180 days in a year. Question 21. Are there temporary card permits if you're not here year-round? I'm a residente permanente. It's again basically the same answer to the one I just gave. As a residente temporal, can you still drive a foreign plated car here? Will you be hassled by the authorities on any level? We have a residente temporal for 2 more years. If we leave our cars here for 1 or 2 years, do we get our 300 deposit back? Yes, for the period that your temporary residency lasts. And of course, you will not be hassled or bothered in any way regarding the import or importation. What is the entire process now for the deposit? Kilómetro 21, kilometer 21 for cars that are nationalized. Your deposit will be returned to you when the permit is canceled, when the car permit is canceled before its due date. What is the process for nationalizing a car and what are the costs? First, you contract a custom broker. Number one. Number two, you will pay a 10% of its value in customs or aduana plus 16% value added tax or IVA, and of course the broker's fee. And Mr. Sean is smiling there. Due to health issues, I am unable to drive to the border. What do I do? You can send the card with one of the authorized persons of the names that appear on the back of the permit that you are already holding. And those are the ones that are legalized. They can drive your car. 26, I have returned to the US and left my card in Mazatlán with a valid sticker. What can I do? If you have a permanent residency, when you return, please ask for a sure return, retorno seguro, for a retorno seguro. If it's temporary residence, there is no problem whatsoever. Number 27, if I come in on a tourist visa and I leave my car locked in the garage here between visits, this is no only if you have temporary residence according to the law. Question number 28, can I bring in a boat on a trailer and leave it here between visits? No, it is the same as we explained in the past or last question. 29, if we have become residente permanente and our car is now here illegally, do we forfeit our deposit? Do we have to leave immediately? What is the process of removing your car? Hay 3 preguntas ahí. It says, the answer here, it says yes, because the permit is already due. Number 30, is anything being done to be able to national? based on that question, there's 3 steps.
This is basically the crux of the problem for the foreign community here, this particular question. As you can see, there's still confusion. So this is going to be the definitive answer directly from Aduana. And this goes back to over here. This is going to be the procedure. If you have a permanent resident card, what to do if you have to get your car out. This is the process. So this is the key. So everybody can listen.
Thank you, Steve. One, two, three, four. We have, you go to Aduana or Customs to get once you get your permanent residency here. First, you go to Aduana. It says, I have this residente permanente. Then they will do whatever paperwork it is supposed to be done, and you will be getting via mail a notification. With that information that you get from the Mexico DF, which is the capital here for those that do not know, in Mexico, then you go with those documents that you're going to get by mail, and you go to the local IRS, which is Hacienda, and you say, I need the retorno seguro, what is called retorno seguro. And then after that, you have Hacienda, or the local IRS, will give you 5 days to take the car out. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 steps. I can go over again, but basically that's what it is. Is Hacienda, or the local IRS, the one that gives you that letter and the time that you have in order to drive the car out of Mexico. There was a little bit of a leeway here in the law, and I asked them, and they said you can go to the Hacienda and said, look, today is the 1st, but I can leave, let's say, within a week and a half or 2 weeks, and Hacienda will have this leeway in which will tell you, okay, the 5 days may start counting as of a week and a half, which is the date that you have told me that you can depart. So they have that little bit of a waiver or leeway in the law that allows Hacienda, given the authority to do that.
What happens if you're leaving tomorrow? No letter.
No letter. My letter was never answered. Then you won't get to work.
If you have the documents from Customs and you're driving around and you're stopped, you have that duly stamped document. It says, I'm waiting for the documents to be received at home from Mexico DF. And those documents from Customs or Aduana will allow you to continue driving until you get the proper documentation from Mexico DF. if within a reasonable amount of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, you don't receive it, it is advisable to go back and call someone and says, look, I'm still driving with this thing, I don't want any trouble, I have not received the documentation, what do we do now? But basically, it's a leeway or waiver within the law that allows you to go beyond the 5 days under those conditions that I mentioned, that you have not received the documentation. And we know better than to be fooling around with those things. Yeah, as I said to you. Is anything being done? You're excused.
I'm Mexican, I live here. So why if we can see now?
Si me perdonan, lo que pasa es que queremos ir avanzando rapidito y al final ellos con gusto.
Ahorita hay un representante de cada una de las dependencias. Y
Al final, señorita,
¿por qué no poner a una persona?
señorita, una vez terminemos.
Sí, pero va a haber tiempo. Pero bueno, eso lo podemos evitar.
Is anything being done to be able to nationalize cars here in Mazatlán? Yes, but only through or via a permit from the Secretary of Economy. But I believe these questions have been posed already. What happens if you already have a paid flight over? You have my other problem here. A paid flight back to your home country and you have become a residente permanente in terms of driving your car out. Sí. No, I think that goes beyond the realm of both agencies. No, it's true. Time is running. We have more questions that have been duly recorded. The representative of both agencies are going to be here, but we have 2 or 3 more people that will be addressing you on issues that are related to what we're talking about.
The next speaker will be Wang Chung talking about insurance.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for the invitation to Friends of México. I'm very pleased to be here. Well, I want to be very short with the information that I can share with you now. Very important, for insurance matters, as long as you keep your migratory status in place, your insurance is good. At least, I am telling you from one of the companies that I am representing, which is Qualitas. So that's a very good part because your cars will be covered under this type of policies. So it's very important, the migratory status. Also, I want to share with you the option that we can have available to put insurance like a nationalized vehicles. We can do that for your current vehicles if you want to put Mexican plates. But for insurance matters, again, we are fine having your migratory status in place.
Now we have the representative from Transito. Okay, actually we'll have the Luis. Sí. There have been rumors about cars being confiscated and people being arrested, so that's going to be addressed. But the other thing is Luis would like to clarify something.
Yeah, let me clarify something, and I think they have created a lot of confusion. My BlackBerry has stopped ringing. Okay. We are citizens of a country. In that words, we have a passport, but we we can have a residency. In other words, you live and you are a citizen. If you are a United States citizen, you have a blue passport, or a black passport, or a red passport, depending upon the one that you have, you can live anywhere in the world. It's no problem. You can be a permanent resident in Mexico, you can be a permanent resident anywhere in the world. The cases that I'm referring are people that are foreigners and have legal permanent residence in the United States. And I would like to have a little bit of fun because I'm the one who gets the calls at 2 o'clock in the morning when the car is illegal and you get arrested. So we're going to have the maximum authority, the federal authority. The inspector from the Federal de Caminos is the one who is going to arrest you, take your car, and they're going to call me, and I will tell you, sorry, it's 2 o'clock, wait until the morning. And at the same time, we have Transito, municipal officer, but also the authority to confiscate that car. Thank you. I'll be next to him.
Buenas tardes, buenos días, ¿todo bien? Soy Carlos Ortiz. Me dice que hay una duda en referencia a los vehículos que no traen sus documentos en regla.
Those are cars that are illegally here, foreign plate cars that are illegal in Mexico.
Esto es su permiso de internación temporal del que estoy hablando. Si en alguna ocasión ustedes son detenidos en la vía general de comunicación, estoy hablando de las salidas de Mazatlán o en el transcurso del trayecto de Mazatlán a la frontera, si tenemos un vehículo con documentación irregular, el procedimiento es ponerlo a disposición de la autoridad competente.
If for any reason you are stopped at a checking point by a federal authority and your car doesn't have proper documentation, they are going to take you under the disposition of
que es el Ministerio Público Federal.
The federal DA.
Pero hay algo muy importante.
There is something very important.
Para que esto suceda,
For this to happen,
necesitamos cometer una infracción.
You must have some kind of infraction, fine.
Esto es, si mi dependencia está en la vía federal, en la carretera, y observamos que algún vehículo con placas extranjeras comete una infracción, y más si la infracción que cometió pone en peligro la integridad del conductor que la va conduciendo, valga la redundancia, y pone en peligro la integridad de las demás personas que están en la vía, es motivo de detención del vehículo.
If for any reason they notice that you are committing something wrong, in other words, they are stopping you for the purpose of a fine, then they will take the vehicle.
Si detengo el vehículo y veo la irregularidad de la documentación del mismo, es cuando procede ponerlo a disposición de la autoridad.
Once that happens, they will be sure that the documents are, correct and that they are up to date. If not, they are going to take you to the disposition of a federal agency, that in this case is a Ministerio Público Federal, the federal DA.
La nueva administración está preocupada por la proximidad social con la gente. Esto es, no vamos a detener un vehículo que haya cometido una infracción simple, que no ponga en peligro la integridad de la gente.
He's
La
reiterating
autoridad se
that
está
the
dando.
new administration is committed to help each and every one of you. And they are not going to arbitrarily stop you for things that they are considering minor.
Si la autoridad facultada para decidir la situación legal del vehículo es la Procuraduría General de la República, ahí se pondrá a disposición el vehículo y al conductor, y él determinará.
The person and the vehicle will be taken under the jurisdiction of the PGR, Procuraduría General de la República.
Quiero recalcar, para que este hecho se dé, necesitamos cometer una infracción que ponga en riesgo. Si no la cometemos, no se va a dar el caso. Entonces, lo estoy invitando a que respete el reglamento de tránsito en carretera federal y de los demás municipios o estados que crucen. En este caso, en Mazatlán, no se ha dado dicha situación. Les quiero hacer un breve comentario. El sábado se dio con un ciudadano canadiense que traía una placa, el vehículo tenía 2 placas y venía acoplado a un remolque.
You like to mention and frame the point that only if you are at risk or you are putting somebody in risk is when you are going to be stopped and you will be taken to the disposition of the TA. He specifically mentioned a case on Sunday where a Canadian citizen had 2 license plates.
No obstante que en el estado está tipificado como delito traer una placa que no es del vehículo, observamos que traía la placa, el vehículo de motor traía la placa del remolque.
He noted that the car had a license plate and he had an attached cargo unit and had another license plate.
Estaba cambiada, la placa que debe traer
The plate was
el
exchanged.
vehículo la traía el remolque y la del remolque la traía el vehículo.
The attachment was on the car and the car has the one on the attachment.
Por distracción u omisión, el señor propietario de ese vehículo y conductor cambió las placas. Se le hizo una llamada de atención y recomendación para evitar esa situación, mas sin embargo no fue puesto a disposición de la autoridad,
Even
porque
though
se
that is
utilizó el
a
criterio en
federal
ese caso.
offense, the person just received a warning.
Verificamos la legalidad del remolque y del vehículo, se le llamó la atención al conductor y siguió su curso.
They went ahead and checked that the status of the vehicle was legal in the country, and after the warning, the person was released.
Una de mis funciones dentro de las vías generales de comunicación es prevenir los ilícitos en la carretera y auxiliarlos. Otra de mis funciones y obligaciones es auxiliarlos a ustedes. Véanlo desde ese punto de vista.
He said that he's here trying to be sure that the law is obeyed, but he's also here to be sure that if you are in trouble on the road, you seek assistance.
Es todo. Gracias.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Aquí la mayoría de la plática, me imagino que la principal preocupación de ustedes
es que le recojan el vehículo.
He says that the main issue here is repossession of the vehicle. That they take your car. That your car is taken.
Ok. Tránsito municipal, la única manera que puede recoger un vehículo es cometiendo algún daño en un accidente. Es la única manera que se retiene temporalmente el vehículo.
Transito would only take your car if there is some damage involved, like in an accident.
Se retiene temporalmente y se pone a disposición del Ministerio Público si es que no llegan a un acuerdo.
The car will be taken and will be taken to the district attorney's office.
Si llega a un acuerdo, pues ahí mismo en la Secretaría de Seguridad Pública, ahí mismo se les devuelve el vehículo.
If there is some kind of internal mediation or kind of settlement, the car will be returned.